gave his life as a ransom. But then he said for who? And it was for many. So it's a little bit about the ransom and also that it was for many, which also led him into making that. What was he trying to do there? Make that? Brother McCullough? Zach? Jadon, behind you, buddy.
He was linking it to the question to the next time you get there.
And that's called, Zach, what is that called? The Brother McCullough?
The link.
True. Sister Huey? And which return visit was it, Sister Huey? The second return visit, right? So that's what his end goal was. I'll give you one. Let's see. No, I'm not going to give you one other one. My time is up. So, but I will. You know what? Actually, I'll do it really quick. Do you notice that he was there by himself? It was only he didn't have a householder with him. But it was brought out that when working by yourself, you should review the May 2012 Kingdom Ministry, page 1, paragraph 3, when being careful about working by yourself. It was an exercise caution while in the ministry when you're working by yourself. That was probably just the way they set it up, but it's something to pay attention to. It's one thing I noticed. All right, let's move on down so we get a live example of how this first return visit will work. We're going to ask Sister Oak and Sister Martinez, and they're going to give us our first return visit.
Maria and Vanessa, we spoke last week.
Oh, yes, I remember.
I'm glad I was able to run into you today. Is this a good time for you?
Sure, I have a few minutes.
Okay. Great. So last time we spoke, I left you with a question. Why did Jesus die? How would you answer that question?
I honestly haven't thought of that.
It's okay. It's a question that many people throughout history have. It's a question that has puzzled a lot of people throughout history. Thankfully, we have the Bible that can help us to answer that question. Notice what it says here in Matthew 20:28. Would you like to read that out loud?
Sure. Just as the Son of Man came not to be ministered to, but to minister and to give his life as a ransom in exchange for many.
Looking at the end of the verse, do you notice the reason why Jesus gave his life?
It says, as a ransom.
Exactly. Jesus gave his life to buy back the life of others. He also taught us how we can show appreciation for his sacrifice. Let's consider that the next time I'm here. Does Saturday around 10:30 work for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I'll see you then.
See you then.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. The point that is brought out there is from the study number 3. It was use of questions. We saw exactly how you did that, asking that question about why did Jesus die for us, and then bringing out Matthew chapter 20, verse 28. Fantastic job. So keep up the good work. We're happy to have you on the school. Okay, our next first return visit is going to be handled by Brother Jason Adoy and also Brother Jamal Cunningham. Let's see how they handle this first return visit.
Hey Jamal, nice to catch you at home today.
Oh, good to see you too.
Good. Well, I wanted to come back and follow up on our discussion we had last time. Last time I came, we talked about who Jesus Christ was. And we found through the Bible that he's the Son of God. And around this time, especially Easter holiday, a lot of people wonder why he had to die. Have you ever thought about that?
Not really. I do know that if I was the Son of God, nobody would put a hand on me.
Yeah, a lot of people with that power would probably feel the same way you do. And it's important to figure out why he had to die. And so I'd like to share with you from the Bible and from my smartphone here, Matthew chapter 20, verse 28. And can you read that for me, please?
It says, just as the Son of Man came, not to be ministered to, but to minister, and to give his life as a ransom in exchange for many.
Right, wonderful. So towards the end of the verse here, what does it say? Well, why did he die?
It says, as a ransom.
Right, exactly. So it shows here that he's died as a ransom for the few and for many. And so that's so important as to why we should study the Bible. And if you have time, I'd like to show a very short video with you about why studying the Bible is so important. Is that okay?
Sure, yeah.
Great. Isn't that great? So it shows why studying the Bible gives us that accuracy of the truth. So what I'd like to do is come back in a few days, maybe Saturday around this time, and discuss with you why and how we can show appreciation for Jesus' ransom sacrifice. Is that okay?
Just so happen I'll be at home Saturday. Sounds good.
Perfect. I'll see you then.
All right.
Nice job. Again, he used the baseline of the sample conversation, and then he also played that video, or attempted to play the video on why study the Bible. The point that he was working on there was visual aid, but what was he using as his visual aid? What did he have in his hand? He had his smartphone. He was all queued up and ready to go to use that video as a visual aid. Why was he doing that? Because it really made what he was talking about a little bit more vivid, a little bit more alive for that householder. So it gave some flavor, so to speak, to his presentation. So we want to always, when we're in our ministry, how can we do that? Well, we can do that with our phone. Maybe we're showing them a picture. Maybe we're showing them a map. Maybe we're showing them a video, which we've been encouraged to do. Sometimes we need to ask additional questions to emphasize key ideas. But when playing a video, make sure you always show your householder the screen. And then hopefully then to make sure you turn up your volume so that they can hear it. So as we saw, that's what Brother Adoy did. So that was very nice. We really appreciate that. So that's all that we have time for Apply Yourself to the Field ministry. Now we're going to continue on in our Living as Christians part. We're going to ask all that can to please stand and join with me in singing song number 69. It's entitled Sing Out Joyfully, song number 69, and then we'll invite Brother David Adoy forward to give us our local needs. Song number 69.
The days before the flood of Noah's Day occurred, mankind was living at the worst time in human history. at that time, up to that time. Today, we actually live in the cesspool of contamination in Satan's world. And so that's a challenge then for all of us. So let's pay attention to this video and let's see why it's so important for us to remain loyal so that Jehovah can continue to guard us.
Jehovah, the God of love, hates. That's quite a statement, isn't it? How can that be? Well, look at the first part of today's text at Psalm 97:10. O you who love Jehovah, hate what is bad. Our God expects us to hate what is bad because he does that. And the reason for this is explained in the first two verses of Psalm 97. Verse 1 begins, Jehovah has become king. Verse 2 concludes, righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. And in the scriptures, righteousness refers to what is right according to God's standard of right and wrong. And here are just a few examples in the Bible of the things that Jehovah says are wrong and that he hates. At Psalm 11:5 it says, Jehovah hates anyone who loves violence. At Isaiah 61:8 it says, I, Jehovah, hate robbery and unrighteousness. At Malachi 2:16 it states, I hate divorce, says Jehovah. The context talking about treacherous, unscriptural divorce. And then there's Proverbs chapter 6. Let's turn in our Bibles to that. Proverbs, the 6th chapter, starting with verse 16. There are 6 things that Jehovah hates, yes, 7 things that he detests. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood. A heart plotting wicked schemes, and feet that run quickly to evil. A false witness who lies with every breath, and anyone sowing contentions among brothers. So yes, the God of love hates, and so does Jesus. Look at what was said of God's Son at Hebrews chapter 1 and verse 9. Hebrews 1:9. You loved righteousness and you hated lawlessness. That is why God, your God, anointed you with the oil of exaltation more than your companions. Well, if we desire Jehovah's blessing, then we also must hate what is bad. That is, have an intense aversion, a strong abhorrence for what God hates. And having that godly hate serves as a powerful protection for us not to get involved in any bad practices. But exactly what do these include? Well, we just read in Proverbs 7 categories of hateful things. They're basic, but they cover virtually all types of wrongs. Haughty eyes and wicked schemes are sins committed in thought. A lying tongue and a false witness are sinful words. Hands that shed blood and feet that run to evil, and someone who produces contentions among brothers, why, those are all wicked deeds. And interestingly, the writer, when he increased the number of things Jehovah hates from 6 to 7, that suggests that this list is not intended to be complete because humans keep thinking up bad things. And as an example, consider the escalating trend toward the use of more and more explicit sex and graphic violence that appear today in advertising and entertainment, from clothing ads to movies. Now, how much of that can we be exposed to before it affects us mentally and morally? It makes me think of the 5-second rule. You ever heard of that? It's a so-called rule that some people say applies to food that's dropped on the floor. That it's okay to eat it if you pick it up in 5 seconds or less because bacteria won't have time to contaminate it. But is that really true? Not according to research done last year at Rutgers University. It was concluded that no matter how fast you pick up food that falls on the floor, you will pick up bacteria with it, sometimes in less than 1 second. Of course, the longer the food sits on the floor, the more bacteria it collects. So if you eat food dropped on the floor, you're taking a chance, no matter how long it sat there. And you should know that a clean-looking floor is not necessarily clean. So if food falls on the floor, when in doubt, throw it out. But how does this relate to our discussion of hating the things that Jehovah hates? Well, how long does it take for an immoral, violent, or satanic image to burn a thought in our mind? Something we see on a billboard, in a magazine, on television, at a movie, on the internet. Is there a 5-second rule for this sort of thing? Should we think that as long as we look at it only briefly, it will not contaminate us? Well, let's use 5 seconds as an example and see how long that is, and you can judge for yourselves. Don't take your eyes off the screen. Now, do you think at lunch today you'll be able to remember that picture? Delicious looking chocolate ice cream sundae with syrup and a cherry on top? Well, don't expect to see it on the lunch line. Now let's try 4 seconds. What about this image? Will this cute baby's face come back to your mind tomorrow, next week? Now watch the screen for 3 seconds. Will this image stick in your mind? Next month, next year, do you think you will be able to remember Jesus on a white horse riding off to the Battle of Armageddon? Now you saw each picture for only a few seconds, and yet scientists say the human brain can process images in even less time, in a split second, in the blink of an eye. So think how much processing our brain can do in several seconds or minutes or longer. Now, the pictures we just looked at were all wholesome images. But what if there had been a pornographic picture from the internet, a sexually explicit or graphically violent scene from a movie, or some spiritistic gore in a video game? If we gaze at something that Jehovah hates, we're taking a chance no matter how long we look at it. And that graphic image can come back to mind again and again to haunt us. Now, we may not be able to avoid all of this 100% because of the wicked world that surrounds us, but we certainly don't have to linger in looking at these things, and we do not want to seek them out. And we need to realize that what we might think is a clean movie is not necessarily clean. So, like food that has fallen on the floor, when in doubt, we throw it out. So we need to detest the immorality, the violence, the spiritistic practices of Satan's world. In other words, hate every practice that violates Jehovah's righteous standards. Now, even if we hate what is bad, we may struggle because we live in a world that caters to the flesh, and we have our own sinful nature to control. So how do we develop the needed hatred for what is bad? First, we strengthen our desire to please Jehovah in everything we do. Then we meditate on what it is that he loves and what it is that he hates. And finally, we convince ourselves of the badness of the things that he hates by considering how disgusting the results are for those who practice them. And one more thing, if we struggle with this, then we pray earnestly to Jehovah to help us strengthen our powers of self-control. Well, you can be sure that as our day's text, Psalm 97:10 says, of those who imitate Jehovah and hate what is bad, he is guarding the lives of his loyal ones, and he rescues them from the hand of the wicked.
Wasn't that powerful? We live in the most dangerous time in human history, and the stakes are incredibly high. When would you like to die? Can you pick the date and the manner? Nobody wants to die. But what is at stake is our own personal lives. But there's more involved than that. It has to do with respecting and honoring Jehovah God's sovereignty. Now, in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve made their own decision to reject Jehovah God's standards, turn their backs on him, and set up their own standards. One of the first things they did after sinning was they realized they needed to make clothes. And you think for perfect people, or recently perfect people, that they will make some really nice clothes. But they just went right next door to the next tree and picked up some fig leaves and strung them together, and that was their loin covering. What could it possibly hide? And so that shows you the thinking of fallen humankind. If we allow ourselves to be entertained by these demonic things like pornography, violence of an extreme kind, what are we doing? Well, look at 1 Corinthians. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 21. There we're admonished, you cannot be drinking the cup of Jehovah and the cup of demons. You cannot be partaking of the table of Jehovah and the table of demons. What would be Jehovah's reaction? Well, what would be, if you are married, what would be your reaction if your wife or husband begins to flirt with somebody? That violates your rights as a married person. Notice what Jehovah says there, what the Bible says about Jehovah in verse 22. Or are we inciting Jehovah to jealousy? Perhaps we are stronger than he is. We can beat him up. We can bind him. Can we? No. We are not stronger than he is, are we? And so when we do these things or allow ourselves to be influenced by them, we are drinking from the cup of demons. We are partaking of the food on the table of Satan the devil. And Psalm 97 verse 10 that Brother Sirango quoted said, you who love Jehovah, you must hate what is bad, what Jehovah God hates. Satan has made it difficult for us living in the time of the end to do so, because he's using all the digital media that is available to speed up the corruption and degradation of mankind. Now here we are, Jehovah's people, holy. And what do you think Satan's intention is? To contaminate us so that we would not bring honor and glory to Jehovah. So we'll be just like Adam and Eve and reject Jehovah's standards and set up our own. In other words, we become our own gods and goddesses, doing what we want, not what Jehovah God wants. You probably heard that song. Just one look. Nobody knows that song, just me? Brother Mary? That's all it, just one look, that's all it. How long did it take Eve to look at? Just one look. Remember King David? He was supposed to be going out to war, but he chose to be on vacation that day. He sent Joab and the rest, go kill people. And he sat on top of his flat roof of his palace. And as he was sitting there, he saw this absolutely drop-dead gorgeous woman come and take a shower in that open shower enclosure. So he could see her from his rooftop palace. What should he have done? He already had many wives. Shouldn't he have got up and respected the dignity of that woman? But how long did it take? Just one look. But he continued looking at the naked woman taking her bath. And what would we call that today? Pornography. And what was the consequence of him doing that? calamity for him, his household. And when he comes back in the paradise, I wonder what he will say to Uriah as they work together in the same congregation. And what he did, as good a person and worshiper of Jehovah as he was, will be studied and recounted to time indefinite. So you and I need to do one thing. Jesus told us what we need to do as we fight against Satan's wicked system, against all his temptations, all his blandishments. Look at Luke chapter 13 and verse 24. Jesus was asked this question: how many are going to make it? He said, are you there? Luke 13:24, he said, exert yourselves slowly. Take your time. And try and get into that narrative, because everybody who tries will get in. I must be reading the wrong Bible. It must be the purple Bible. He said, exert yourselves vigorously to get in through the narrow door, because many, I tell you, will seek to get in but will not be able. Why? Because they did not exert themselves vigorously to get in. So you and I have to put up a strong fight for our holiness, to be clean before Jehovah. What is the benefit if we do that? Look at Psalm 91. Psalm 91, it says, anyone dwelling in the secret place of the Most High will lodge under the shadow of the Almighty. And that's what we have done in coming to Jehovah. The psalmist said, I will say to Jehovah, you are my refuge and my stronghold, my God in whom I trust. And we show that trust by hating what is bad, making ourselves hate what is bad. What would be your favorite drink? Let me guess. How about malted chocolate milk with a cream in it, you know? And then just as you're about to sip it, somebody tells you, oh, by the way, he put a little drop of cyanide in there. Now, would you say, oh, I love cyanide? I just need to be resurrected, so let me go ahead and quaff it. No! Well, that's how Satan offers these things to us. It may feel pleasurable, but there's cyanide in it, and more than one drop. Yes, it will kill you. It will kill me, too, if we give in to that. So that's how we show that we trust in Jehovah God. We have come under his shadow. It says, for he, that is Jehovah, will rescue you from the trap of the bird catcher, that's Satan the devil, from the destructive pestilence. With his pinions he will cover you, and under his wings you will take refuge. His faithfulness will be a large shield and a protective wall. See? You will not fear the terrors of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, the persecutions, the frontal attacks. You won't be afraid of that. Nor the pestilence that stalks in the gloom, nor the destruction that ravages at midday. Well, if you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses and you don't smoke cigarettes, tobacco, you don't smoke marijuana, you don't shoot drugs, cocaine, and other things like that, how would you be afraid of emphysema? How would you be afraid of losing your mind, of becoming schizophrenic? No. And so it says, if we remain loyal to Jehovah, he will guard us. He will protect us. We will never have to be afraid of acquired immune deficiency syndrome, because we acquired it by getting blood transfusion.
Gave his life as a ransom, but then he said for who? And it was for many. So it's a little bit about the ransom and also that it was for many, which also led him into making that, what was he?